Okay, hello and welcome back. In this video we're covering section 7.3 on factoring trinomials now in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where this a term is not equal to 1. In the last video on section 7.2 we saw some factoring techniques when we just had x squared plus bx plus c. So in that case, we could say the a term is 1. In the more general sense, a trinomial might have some number in front, like 3x squared plus 2x plus 1. So we're going to see this will take a slightly different approach from our previous method, where we will also bring in factoring by grouping as an additional part of the process. And so that was covered 2 videos ago in 7.1. So let's take a look at a few examples where the a value is greater than 1. So we have, for our first example, 8 times k squared plus 14k plus 3. So we're looking at this from the general perspective of ax squared plus bx plus c. So we see that we have this time an a value of 8, a b value of 14, and a c value of 3. So the method that I'm going to show was taught to me as something called the AC method. So we'll go through this first example and I'll write out which steps we're performing, and then we'll start to summarize them with the additional examples. So let's start out. The first step is to multiply the a and the c terms. So we're starting with 8k squared plus 14k plus 3. The first step in this method is to multiply a times c. In this case, a is 8 and c is 3. So 8 times 3 is 24. Now this is the number that we will find two factors that add up to the middle term, to the b term. So that's similar to our previous method. Like if we didn't have this 8 here, we would just look at factors of c that add up to b. If there is a term for the a term, you first multiply 8 times c, then find factors of that will add up to your middle term. So we're taking this 24 and we're going to find factors of a times c, which we just found is 24, that sum to b. So let's think, factors of 24 that add up to 14. Well, 1 and 24 definitely won't work. 2 and 12, 12 plus 2 is 14. So those are the two numbers that we're looking for. In our previous method, we were able to jump straight to writing our two factors, but we have some additional steps in the AC method. We're going to take these two numbers and rewrite the b term in our original expression. Meaning, I'll write 8k squared, and instead of 14k, I'm going to write it as 2k plus 12k. And then we still have the plus 3. So I'm taking these two numbers and rewriting the middle term using these two numbers, because 2k plus 12k will give us our 14k. Now we have an expression that has 4 terms. So with this, we can factor by grouping. So I'm going to put this into two sets of parentheses. I have 8k squared plus 2k plus 12k plus 3. So in the first set of parentheses, we can take 2 out. They're both divisible by 2, and they both have a k. So that will leave us 8 divided by 2 is 4, and we took 1k out of k squared, so there's 1 left. And we took the whole 2k out, so we'll need a +1 placeholder here. And then in the second set of parentheses, it looks like they're both divisible by 3. So I can bring the 3 out. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so I'll get 4k, and I took the 3, so 4k plus 1. Now I have that common factor, the 4k plus 1. So as we've seen before, we can bring that out in front. And the second factor will have 2k plus 3. So let's review these steps. There's a few additional steps from our previous method. First, we need to just identify that we are in this situation where we have an a term that's greater than 1. So we have this 8, so we need to use this additional method. So you start out by multiplying a times c. That will be our first step. You take that number and find two factors that add up to b. That will be our second step, and that's similar to what we've done before. Then we'll rewrite the b term and factor the result by grouping. So we can view that as the third step. So let's see example B, and we'll go through the same process again. And why don't we double check our answer, just to be sure that this method is working. So if I were to multiply these two factors out, I would FOIL it. Multiplying the first two terms would give me 8k squared. Then 4k times 3 gives me 12k. 1 times 2k is 2k, and then 1 times 3 is 3. So that is our 8k squared plus 14k plus 3. Alright, let's try example B following the same process. Part B gives us 6c squared minus 17c plus 12. So this time our A term is 6, our B term is negative 17, and C is positive 12. So our first step is to multiply A times C. So for us that would be 6 times 12, which is 72. Second step is to find factors of this number. So find factors, like two terms that multiply that sum to the B term. So that means we want two numbers that multiply to give us 72 that will add up to give us negative 17. So that means they must both be negative since the product is positive. So let's go through. We can try guessing and checking a few factors. You can go through one by one if you need to, like -1, negative 72. That would give us negative 73, so we're pretty far off. It's divisible by 2. That would be 2 and 36, but those won't add to negative 17. Looks like it's divisible by 3, 3 and 24. So that would sum to negative 27, so we're getting closer. We have negative 4 and 18, still a little bit far off. It's divisible by 6 as well, 6 and 12. So that gives us negative 18, so we're close. Next one up is negative 8 and negative 9. Those multiply to give us 72, and then when we add them, we get negative 17. So you don't have to go through all of these one by one. It's a way to make sure that you're covering all of your options. But say once like we do the first couple, we're pretty far off. We know that these numbers need to be larger. We could jump straight to trying some of these larger factors. But if you want to be sure that you're not skipping any, you can go through one by one. Okay, we found our two numbers. The third step was to rewrite that middle term. So I'll say rewrite the b term, and then factor the result by grouping. So that means I will write our original expression 6c squared, and instead of minus 17c, I'll write it as minus 8c minus 9c. Again, the numbers are coming from here. And then we have plus 12 at the end. So we have four terms. Let's put it into two sets of parentheses. 6c squared minus 8c plus negative 9c plus 12. Out of the first set of parentheses, they're both divisible by 2, and they both have a c. So that would leave us with 3c minus 4. And in the second one, they're both divisible by 3, and I want the first term to be positive 3c. So let's take out a negative 3. I'll write this as minus 3. That will turn this into positive 3c. Dividing negative 9 by negative 3 gives us positive 3. And then 12 divided by negative 3 will give us negative 4. So that will give us this correct repeated factor. So last step is to bring that out in front, 3c minus 4. And then the second factor will have 2c minus 3. So again, start by multiplying a times c, then find two factors of that number you just found that add up to the middle term b, then rewrite the middle term and factor by grouping. All right, let's look at example C. This one is 7x squared minus 34xy minus 5y squared. So we have both x's and y's this time. So we can view this as 7x squared minus 34y, like that would be our b term, times x. And then our c term is this entire minus 5y squared. Let's write that out. Our a term is 7, the b term is negative 34y, and c is negative 5y squared. So let's go through that process again. The first step is to multiply a times c. So we'll do 7 times negative 5y squared. That will give us negative 35y squared. Now we want to find two factors that add up to negative 34, negative 34y. So negative 35y squared, well, that could just be positive y and negative 35y. When we add those together, we'll get negative 34y. So we get 1y and minus 35y. So now let's rewrite that middle term and factor by grouping. So we have 7x squared plus 1y minus 35y minus 5y squared. So putting this into two groups, 7x squared plus y plus second group minus 35y minus 5y squared. In the first set of parentheses, let's see, Oh, I see. I've made a mistake here. If looking back, I wanted to make minus 34xy our middle term. So I have the y's, I just didn't include my x in there. Let me backtrack. So it should be 7x squared plus 1x times y, or I should say, yeah, we'll put x first. X times y, and then minus 35x times y, minus 5y squared. So let's put these in groups. So plus minus 35xy minus 5y squared. So in the first set of parentheses, all we can take out is an x, and we're left with 7x plus y. And then in the second set, they're both divisible by negative 5, and they both have at least one y. So negative 35 divided by negative 5 will give us positive 7. And we took the y out, so we just have x left over. And then for the second term, we're taking out the negative 5, and we took one y. So there'll be a positive y left over, which matches our other factor. That's a good sign. So let's just complete this. This will be our common factor of 7x plus y. And the second factor will be our x minus 5y. In example 2, it looks like we have something where we can first factor out a common factor from everything. We have 12n squared plus 64n minus 48. So notice all terms are divisible by 4. So that means we can bring a 4 out in front. 12 divided by 4 is 3, so 3n squared. 64 divided by 4 is 16, so plus 16n. And then 48 divided by 4 is 12, so we'll have minus 12. This at least makes the numbers smaller that we'll have to work with, so that can help make this a little bit simpler. So now let's just continue our process looking at just what's in parentheses, but let's not forget that we have this 4 out in front. So inside the parentheses now, our a term is 3, b is 16, and c is negative 12. So let's multiply a times c. 3 times negative 12 is negative 36. And we want two factors that add up to positive 16. So the product is negative and the b value is positive, so that means we should have one positive and one negative. And the larger number should be positive since we want the result to be positive. So we can start with negative 1, positive 36. That would give us 35. How about negative 2 and positive 18? If we add those together, we'll get our positive 16, which is what we want. So let's take those two numbers and rewrite our middle term. Let's not forget that the 4 is out front still. So I'll write this as 3n squared minus 2n plus 18n minus 12. So let's put these into two groups. That'll be 3n squared minus 2n plus 18n minus 12. Now in the first set of parentheses, they both have one n in common. So that can come out. I'll be left with 3n minus 2. And in the second set of parentheses, they're both divisible by 6. So I can take a 6 out. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Still has an n. Negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2. There's our 3n minus 2. So that means this will factor into, we still have our 4 out front, then that common factor of 3n minus 2. Then the last one will have n plus 6. So it's always useful to see, is there something you can factor out from the start and that can help make the numbers at least smaller. We would still get the same result either way, but we can make it a bit easier on ourselves. All right, let's look at example 3. Here we have 2x squared plus 11x plus 15. So our a term is 2, our b term is 11, and our c term is 15. So a times c is 2 times 15, which is 30. So let's find factors of 30 that add up to positive 11. So there's 1 and 30, that won't work. 2 and 15, that's 17. 3 and 10, that's 13. How about 5 and 6? 5 times 6 is 30. 5 plus 6 is positive 11. So let's rewrite our middle term. We'll have 2x squared. Instead of 11x, I will say plus 5x plus 6x plus 15. Let's put these into 2 sets of parentheses. In the first set, they both have one x in common, so I can take an x out. I'll be left with 2x plus 5. In the second set, it looks like they're both divisible by 3. So I can take a 3 out. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Still has an x. 15 divided by 3 is positive 5. So our common factor is 2x plus 5. And then we'll have x plus 3 left over. Alright, let's keep going, get some more practice. Example 4 gives us 3t squared minus 29t plus 18. So our a term is 3, our b term is negative 29, and our c term is 18. So let's do a times c. That will be 3 times 18, which is 54. So 2 factors of 54 that add up to negative 29. So they should both be negative. Can't be negative 1 and negative 54. How about negative 2? 54 divided by 2 is 27, so negative 2, negative 27. Yeah, if we combine those, we get negative 29. So let's rewrite the middle term. We have 3t squared minus 2t minus 27t plus 18. Put them into 2 groups. In the first set, it looks like we can just take one t out. We have one t in common, so we'll get 3t minus 2. And then in the second set, it looks like they're both divisible by 9. And let's take out a negative 9 so that that first term becomes positive. We want a positive 3t, and then 18 divided by negative 9 will give us negative 2. So our result will be the common factor 3t minus 2, and the second is t minus 9. All right, let's look at these last 2 examples. We'll start with part A. We have 16a squared plus 62a minus 8. They're all even, so they're definitely all divisible by 2. I think 62 is not divisible by 8, otherwise we'd be close to taking 8 out. So let's divide it by 2. That would leave us with 8a squared plus 31a minus 4. So in here, our a term is 8, b is 31, and c is minus 4. So let's do 8 times negative 4 gives us negative 32. We want two factors that add up to positive 31. So let's do negative 1 and positive 32. They'll multiply to give us negative 32, and then when we add them together, we get 31. So those are our two numbers. So let's rewrite the middle term. Don't forget about the 2 in front. So we'll have 8a squared minus 1a plus 32a minus 4. Put those into two groups. So 8a squared minus a plus 32a minus 4. In that first set, we can factor an a out. So we'll be left with 8a minus 1. And then in the second set, they're both divisible by 4. 4 goes into 32 8 times, so 8a. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. So this will give us 2 times the common factor 8a minus 1 times those remaining coefficients a plus 4. Right, let's look at part B. So we have minus 2c squared plus 3c plus 20. This time we can factor a negative out. It's useful to have the first term to be positive. So let's take a negative out. Then we'll be left with positive 2c squared. We're essentially dividing by a negative 1, so everything will flip sign. This will give us minus 3c minus 20. So let's multiply 2 times negative 20 in the parentheses. That gives us minus 40. Now we want two factors that will add up to negative 3. So let's just start to skip through. You don't necessarily have to list all the factors. Like we can just pick a few. Like I know 40 is 2 and 20. The result, I want a negative result when I add them together. So let's make the larger number negative. That would give us negative 18, so we're still too far off. What about 4 and 10? That'll give us negative 6, so we're close. How about 5 and 8? 5 and negative 8. 5 times negative 8 is negative 40, and then 5 minus 8 gives us negative 3. So let's write this. We still have that negative in front. And let's go ahead and put these in two groups as well. So the first two terms would be 2c, well, without using parentheses yet, I suppose, 2c minus, or I'm sorry, 2c plus 5c minus 8c minus 20. So we can put these into two groups. The first one has a c in common, so we'll have 2c plus 5 left over. And then in the second one, they're both divisible by negative 4. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is positive 2. We have the c there. Then negative 20 divided by negative 4 gives us the positive 5. So we still have that negative. and then our common factor 2c plus 5, and then the remaining c minus 4. So if you can get the hang of this process, it will help you out a lot, especially in classes like college algebra and pretty much any of the math classes afterwards. You pretty much always end up in some situation where you have to factor something like this for many different reasons. And I've noticed this particular method is one that students seem um, to have sort of less memory in doing, or they have this less sort of built into practice. So if you can get this under your belt, along with our factoring methods from our previous video, then you will have a really useful and applicable skill that will come up a lot in the math classes moving forward. So that finishes this section. Oops, wrong button here. Yeah, that finishes this section. So we're factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. And they say it's by grouping. We end up using grouping. I've been calling it the AC method, since it has those additional first steps of multiplying the a and the c term together. Okay, that'll be it for this video, and I'll see you next time.